Bienvenidos and welcome back to another segment of Arizona Barrio Stories on Latino USA TV. This is where we try to capture stories from our community through the lens of leaders that have grown up here and have contributed much to education, to government, to business, to the culture, the language, and all of our cultural traditions, which are so important to our familias. So today I'm honored to have Verma Pastor, a Chicana, Mexicana, Latina leader who in her own right has been a champion for bilingual education. She worked at the Department of Education for many years. And I can tell you, when I was superintendent, call Verma, because Verma could get you an answer. So welcome, Verma. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm pleased to be here and so glad that we're doing this.
Good, good, good. Well, all our love and admiration, because many women were part of the movement and never got the credit. You know, obviously, you know, your late husband, Ed Pastor, was in his own right a leader, but you are a leader in education. So tell me where you grew up and how you got that motivation to get an education.
Well, it's funny. I grew up in a mining town.
Right.
A segregated mining town. The little town was named Sonora. Mm-hmm. It was Mexican town. Everybody who lived there was a Mexican. We had a few Anglos who were the merchant owners, mm-hmm. The ones that owned the grocery stores and the clothing stores and that type of stores. And then the other Anglo town was Ray Sonora. So we were a segregated town. But funny enough, we had our own golf course. We had a tennis court. We had our skating ring. Not the most beautiful place, but we had it. We had lots of grocery stores. And of course, lots of bars. So we had a medical office and medical shop. We had everything that you would want in a little town, a mining town. But it was a typical mining town, dusty, dirty, dirt roads, and everything was bumpy and rocky and all that. But it was a pleasant place to live. Since we were segregated, we didn't know that we were not equal. Mm-hmm. So we were all equal. We all felt equal, and we all loved each other, and we worked and went to school together. So it was a good place. I enjoyed living there, and I learned a lot of self-perseverance, I think, but just by living in a little mining town there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an amazing story because a lot of people don't know the history of the Ray Mine and the town of Sonora, which was eventually demolished. Right, to make the mine bigger, and then it was moved and is now the town of Kearney.
That's
and
right.
There's so many historical facts and stories, so I didn't realize it was totally segregated. I knew it was segregated, so I was really
Completely segregated.
So being in a segregated town and growing up like that, what was your motivation to get an education?
Well, you know, it's funny because, as I said, we were segregated, but we all felt equal. Mm-hmm. We had a big school. The school was huge because the population was high then. Mm-hmm. I had my first Mexican-American teacher was Miss Rose Duarte, and she was my second grade teacher.
Oh, okay.
And first connection I had with someone of my race, and I thought it was wonderful. Mm-hmm. I thought that I'm going to be her. And that's where I got the idea of going into education. I wanted to be her. And the thing about her was that she drilled and drilled us to get rid of our accents. I still have an accent, especially when I get nervous. It just slips. But she really worked on us, and she was my motivation. Mm-hmm. Then later on, she got married, and her husband was my fifth grade teacher.
Okay.
So I was excited that I had somebody I could relate to. Mm-hmm.
Well, back in that day, you know, during segregation, you were lucky to have a Latino or Mexican-American teacher. I know I never had any until I got to Arizona State University.
Wow.
Dr. Justo Alarcón was my kind of education father, and I really wanted to do something. And he recently passed away, so condolences to his family. Yes. So let's kind of fast forward. You're at the education department doing bilingual education. And then you and a group of other Chicano leaders decide to get together, and in 1984, you create Los Diablos, the official Arizona State University Latino alumni chapter. Can you tell me about the foundation of that?
Well, it started with, it was like an idea that grew, and all of us who were in the group were interested in education, but in other fields. We were all in various fields, but we knew we had to educate our Hispanic students or our Hispanic families. So we started looking around and saying, what can we do? What can inspire our kids to stay in school? Mm-hmm. Well, the first obstacle was money. We had to have money to go to school, so we said, well, let's start a scholarship program. And then the question becomes, how do we start it? So we talked around, looked around. Ed had a friend who he roomed with at ASU. He had moved to California and was working at USC. Ed and him bounced ideas back and forth, and the idea of a scholarship came up. So we said, well, we have to create an organization. So we decided to create Los Diablos, and that's how we got started. And so we decided that the purpose of the organization was to bring in money to give out scholarships for Hispanic students.
Well, and the real history, as you mentioned, Raul Vargas, and who was at the USC at the time, and your husband Ed, really, that was their brainchild to create this scholarship program, and also the Great Menudo Bowl, right? When we would play USC.
The Great Menudo Bowl came about after we were part of Los Diablos, or we had created Los Diablos, and we all started having tailgating parties, when ASU played, and then USC started playing ASU, or ASU started playing UC. But anyway, they were in the same division. So they played, and so again, Ed and Raul says, well, why don't we have a contest? Let's create the Menudo Pot. Whoever wins gets the Menudo Pot. And the Menudo Pot went back and forth between ASU and USC for a long time. So that's how the whole idea of Los Diablos and the competition came about.
Right, and last year we had a commemorative Menudo Bowl at our last game between Arizona State University and USC. Unfortunately, we didn't win that, but
it went back.
Yeah, the party was great. Okay, and so we did have some of us had menudo afterwards. Okay,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah, definitely. So, what would you tell the scholars that are currently in the program today? What message would you give to these young people that are receiving Los Diablos scholarships?
I think the biggest message that I would give them would be give back. Someone has been kind to you. You have earned it, of course, because you have to earn the right for the scholarship. But once you've done this and you've gone and become successful, take a little time and just give back and give your hand out to somebody else and bring somebody else up with you. Because I think that's the only way that we're going to generate a lot of movement. So we have to always give back to our community.
So now that you've told the scholars that, what do you feel is your legacy as a Chicana, Mexicana education leader, political leader?
Well, I don't really know what my legacy is. I think your legacy, you let somebody else tell you what it is. But what I feel is that I've always worked to try to bring somebody else along and try to direct them in a certain direction so that they can be successful in life. And I think the biggest message is give back. Always give back. Always go back and remember who you are. Don't forget who you are and where you come from. Sometimes people become successful and then all of a sudden they can't look at someone that's poor because, pobrecitos, but you need to put your hand out and bring them up and give back. So I think that's what I would like someone to remember me by, saying is someone who helped. Yeah.
As we begin to close, let's talk a little bit about bilingual education, because growing up in a segregated town, I know my parents were punished for speaking Spanish when they grew up in schools here. But how did you decide to be the beacon of hope for us educators?
It's funny because I wanted to be a teacher after Ms. Rose Duarte. I wanted to be a teacher, and so I became a teacher. It just entered my mind and never changed my mind. I just was going to be a teacher. So I started working here at Phoenix Elementary School District, Phoenix District number 1. When I started with them, they had 22 different schools, and shortly into the 60s and the early 70s and 80s, they realized we need to teach these young children English and have a good program, an English program. But at the same time, you can't subtract their language or take it away from them, because you shortchange them by not continuing the students in their language. So that's how bilingual education was created. When I first started teaching, I didn't start teaching in bilingual ed in the beginning. I started teaching as English as a second language.
Right.
My first year, I went to 7 different schools. I saw 700 kids a week. So I would go hour by hour to different grade levels teaching English as a second language. After the year was over, I came back to the superintendent and I said, put me back in the classroom. I am going back in the classroom. I am not helping anybody. How can I help 700 kids with half an hour program a day? That's not right for them, and it's wrong for everybody. So as a result of my strong efforts, we winded up with 8 ESL teachers in 8 different schools. So it worked. So we were able to have different teachers in 8 different schools. And then a bilingual program started.
Right.
So it wasn't just English as a second language, it was a bilingual program.
Right. Well, I have to thank you for leading the way because you made my life easier. When I worked at Phoenix Elementary, I only had to go to Adeline Gray and Lowell School as a bilingual resource teacher. So you see, you've helped so many people. You've given back. You in your own right are someone that we respect, we're proud of. And I'm getting a little emotional here just because
And
so much love and respect.
And I'm feeling a little sympathy or going back memory lane in my own mind of all the things that we did and all the people that worked with me. Rosie Lopez,
Right.
Ophelia Marin, Yolanda Kaiser. I mean, I can go down the list of
Right,
how many
right,
people worked with us.
And so as we close, Verma, what might you say to our audience about life in general, education?
Always pursue your dream. Always pursue your dream. Go after what you think you are good in. And the biggest thing that I can tell anybody is always be prepared. You know, sometimes somebody comes along and says, "Oh, take this class," and you say, "I know what for." Take it. You'll be surprised what you might learn, and you'll be surprised when you wind up using that skill. So always be prepared and be ready to jump into the next event that comes into your life. And that's my biggest recommendation.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it. Con mucho respeto y amor.
Gracias. Thank you.
This is Dr. Jose Leyba signing off on another segment of Arizona Barrio Stories on Latino USA TV.